Good evening and welcome to this week's Loose Links. We are back with a panel of four and lots to talk about this week. Join us for the next hour. Joining me on the panel, Nicholas James, is Chris Clark.
Hey.
Rachel Benny. And Leah Greenwood.
Hey.
We discuss that well-known programme this week. Have I got lots to say about it? Partygate. Have you seen it on Channel 4? And what was your opinion on it when you found out about number 10 through COVID? Find out our opinions. Also, we discussed the Prime Minister, as he is transphobic this week on different sexualities. A man should be a man and a woman should be a woman. His words, not mine. But find out what we have to say about that. And we finish on a light-hearted subject, but find out what it is right at the end. All on this week's Links. Good evening, panel!
Hello.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Chris, first of all, how's the tour going?
It's going fantastically. Just come back from Scotland, and we were in St Andrews and then Hexham in north of England after that. So it's been a busy weekend for me, and we're out gigging on the south coast next weekend.
See, I'm jealous when you say Scotland. I've always wanted to go to Scotland, and I still haven't got there yet.
Well, don't be jealous. Don't be jealous, because it was like a swimming pool. We were driving through swimming pools. It was nothing like the sunshine that we came back to. So.
Leah, I think you're trying to take over my job as presenter. You're on quite a lot, so I'm starting to fear now that you're trying to take over my job.
Well, if it's available, hook me up.
Rachel, how are you? Leah's the new Rachel, really, isn't she? Really, Rachel's gone. No more.
She'll learn when she starts getting bags under her eyes, and she'll be what the only go-to that'll say yes.
Right, ladies and gents, we've got the topic of the century this week. It's been in news, it's been in topics. If you haven't watched it, I am going to put a link on, because I think everybody should watch Partygate on Channel 4. So, nobody died because the staff at 10 Downing Street threw parties throughout COVID lockdown, and yet it was finally brought down by Boris Johnson's government. More than a mass parties or millions in loss of public money, the discovery that the people setting the rules didn't feel the rules applied to them was what stuck in the Crew Channel 4 documentary Partygate points out the case. So I'm not going to read it all because there's quite a lot of information, but from Partygate, what we learn is we're not learning anything new this week. We're not learning that they had parties throughout lockdown. We all knew about this. What Partygate did is it's a documentary from somebody from Number 10 that's very discreet and doesn't really give out their names, but describes what happens at Number 10. Now, it's been dramatised a little bit because it's a documentary / something entertainment. I'm not sure anybody would find it entertaining though. But we found out that there was over 10 parties at 10 Downing Street. We also found out that they brought a wine fridge and brought it in. They had wine Fridays at 4 o'clock throughout lockdown. So when you hear about this now, how do you feel about the rules that were put to us and how we wasn't allowed to go and see anybody, but it was a different set of rules for Number 10? Let's go to you first, Leah, because you're the only one that's watched it.
I've watched it.
Oh, you've watched it, Rach?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't think you watched it, Leah. Let's go to you first. How did you feel watching Partygate?
I was livid, absolutely livid, and like I knew that they'd had parties, but it said they'd had like 17 parties, and I almost wanted to turn it off like 10 minutes into it because I was so mad, and it broke my heart when there were actual people on there that had not been able to see their dying loved ones because of the rules of COVID. You know, they couldn't visit them in hospital. There was a young girl that had got cancer, but she couldn't see any of her friends and family before she died. But yeah, they were having wine parties at 10 Downing Street, and living life, and I was absolutely livid.
What did you think, Rach, when you saw it?
Well, first when it was reported that they're having parties, I didn't really think that it would have been to that extent. But they portrayed themselves as guffawing idiots.
Yeah.
They really did. The thing is, if there was to be another lockdown, if there was, you know, how are people going to believe them? Because if they can be in big groups like they were, messing around, having sex, having, you know, rolling around, being drunk, you know, all in the same room, and making out there's nothing going on out there. It was like chemical warfare outside. They portrayed it as like that. So it makes you think to yourself, is there anything to the conspiracy theories, that it was just all a bit of an act? You know, it was it all put up? Because if they weren't scared, they instilled fear into the whole nation, just so people could, you know, just keep clear of the socializing and the roads. And the thing is that everybody was out there. They were doing damned hard work. It wasn't just nurses, you know. There are lots of people out there, and apart from people being ill in hospital, not being able to be comforted by their loved ones, thing is, a lot of deaths can be contributed by loneliness. And if somebody thought they're in isolation, nobody coming to see them, especially the aged population, they could have died with the thought they're never going to see their relatives again. Fear and loneliness. I was towards the tail end. I looked after my mum through lockdown. The month before 2 months before lockdown, in January, my mum went into hospital with sepsis, pneumonia, and what we thought in March, when it all came out, we thought she'd had COVID because everything was the same. But I looked after her. I went in at 10 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. My brother came down for 3 hours. Then I revisited it in the evening, got her ready for bed. If I wasn't there for the 2 weeks that she's in hospital, she'd have died in hospital.
Yeah.
Would have died. But then her funeral 2 years later, well, in March 2021, we could only have 20 people, and they're all spaced out. And then at home we had a wake, 6 people in the house. And so you're robbed of my mum. I've been robbed of, not as bad as a lot of people with their loved ones, but I've been robbed of my mum having a wake where we could get all together to celebrate her life. And you know, it's cruel. And for them to make such a cock up of running the country, then I thought Boris did a fantastic job until this.
And I was, if I'm honest with you, Rachel, because we got to know each other through lockdown, and I remember I would see you in the street and stuff like that, and you talked about conspiracy, the theories of how the other people said it was all made up, and I was really against that. I was really like, no, this is a proper illness. It's killing thousands of people. How can it be set up? But Chris, how do you feel that Boris came out to do his UK World News about how he cancelled Christmas and all of that, but as he was returning back to the room after his speech, 20 or 30 people were waiting in a room with him with alcohol and music till midnight, gone past at number 10. And we were all suffering, like Rachel said, at home, and we couldn't see or do anything. How does it make you feel?
Well, I've got quite a lot to say about this. Despite the fact that I haven't watched the programme, I've got two very good reasons why I didn't watch the programme. One of them is that I've been away all weekend on the tour, which makes it very difficult. But I also have, and this is quite a confession for someone who is on a show like this, I have not watched the news for about 5 years. I don't watch current affairs programs, and I've cut all that out of my life for my own mental health because it does wind me up. In small bursts like this, with preparation, knowing that I can talk about it, that's fine. You know, I'm with friends here, we can have a chat about it, and I'm not exposing myself to that too much. But yeah, I really find these subjects so infuriatingly awful that I do I do avoid them. So I wasn't fancying watching it anyway, so it's quite a nice excuse that I was away. So, but to answer your question, yes, when I first found out about the parties, absolutely livid. We towed the line completely with all of the guidelines, not necessarily because we believed that every guideline was the right thing to do, but we didn't really know either way. And why not take the moral high ground? Why not do what, you know, we're told to do just for now? Better to be safe than sorry. So it feels like a huge piss take that we all towed the line. And that's what was going on. But at the same time, I'm not surprised. I am very different to Rachel in the fact that I have never liked Boris Johnson at all. I thought every move he's ever made has been them and us.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's a very, for somebody like myself who is anti-conservative, anti-Tory, we do very much feel that way, that they are out of touch with us. It's one rule for them, one rule for everyone else. And I think that just demonstrates our theory on that matter, that absolutely that is what Boris Johnson and his chaps were feeling at the time.
The programme was absolutely eye-opening, and I completely get what you were saying, Leah. 10 minutes in, I wanted to turn it off. I was like, I can't actually watch this anymore, because actually I was so behind Boris. I really was. I was so behind him on, we need to listen, we need to do stuff like that. But what was also mentioned on the programme is that police were turning up to properties on secret, 6 or more gathered in one house, and fining people on the spot. So they were fining people £10,000. £10,000 if you were caught on the spot meeting with another friend or having a social gathering, you were fined. What it also said in this programme, as we say, we don't know for actual fact. Boris hasn't come forward and talked about Partygate, or nobody else has. But what they were saying is police, number of times turned up to number 10. Number of times when these parties were happening, and just vanished it, just walked out, didn't do a thing, didn't split it up, didn't tell all the MPs you need to go home, this isn't right. But they were going out fining people £10,000 when it came to. Do you find that despicable? Does that make you lose trust in our own police, that actually what happens at number 10 stays at number 10?
Well, I think that demonstrates the fact that, you know, what I was just saying, there's one rule for one and one rule for another. But, you know, what do the police have that power, really, to do anything about?
They should do, Chris, to be
honest. They should do, absolutely should do, no question about it.
They should do.
Well, I missed out on my 40th birthday party during lockdown, so I can only... Well, yeah, there you go. And that was bad enough. Can you imagine people that missed out on significant things, you know, poignant moments, like I think it was Rachel saying about not being able to hold a proper wake, and, you know, funerals and all that business. I mean, it makes you feel not just angry, but like you've missed a huge part of your life for nothing.
But maybe at that time the police, they weren't in full control of the facts. They were out there probably you know, in smaller numbers than they should be. And if they're being told by government one thing and then having to do something now, they probably would. They're probably going a bit more heavy-handed. But I think it's, you know, they always said they were led by the science. They're not going to get away with that term any longer.
No.
Because if they were led by the science, they'd have been scared themselves. They wouldn't have wanted to mix.
I agree. Yeah, as soon as I heard about these parties, that was when I threw my mask in the bin. I just went, no, I've done this for long enough. If they're not doing it, I'm not anymore. That was it. And, you know, call me irresponsible, but that was my view on it at the time.
The line that they said right at the end, which was really, really poignant, I think, and really, really up for talk in debate, was this woman that supposedly has come out with everything is putting on her coat at one of the last party gatherings. They're just about to get parted, and she puts on a coat. And this colleague, can't remember her name, or I would even name her, but this colleague said to her, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" She says, "Oh, I'm going home, I'm tired." And she was like, I can't, she was basically saying, "I can't do this. How can we stand here and deliver the message to people, and then we come back and party and karaoke and snogging and kissing and all of that?" And then she said to her, we are here to make the rules. That doesn't mean necessarily we have to follow them. Well, my temper went from here to here, and I don't get cross. I rarely, French might say different, but I rarely get cross. But I've never been so angry when I heard that line, because I just thought, what if, because there's a potential, again, aren't we? We're talking about a new variant coming out again, a new COVID. Do you think the government, even though it's a different government, has any legs to stand on when it comes to another lockdown?
No.
Not now.
No.
And quite honestly, they lost so much money. They made a right cock up with everything. They had to claw it back from somewhere, and everything went downhill after that. So I think they're just going to send us all out and to do our own thing. And you know, we've got to be within the community to get a resistance to it. Yeah, if I got COVID today, I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't mix with people, because I'd be conscious of the people that were more vulnerable. But that's even with flu. That the flu is a killer.
Yeah.
So it's a variant of flu. So, you know, you just be sensible. You just don't go spreading your germs around. If I had a cold, I'd say, "Oh, I won't come out today. I've got a cold, don't want to get it."
Oh, you wouldn't be saying that, Rachel, if you were at number 10. You'd be like, "Come in, have a drink."
But don't you think it's also interesting the amount of people that didn't die of anything other than COVID during COVID times? So, you know, if somebody died of pneumonia or cancer, you know, kidney disease or getting hit by a bus, they still put on their death certificate that they're died by COVID.
That's right.
So we're never going to know the right numbers of who died of COVID. Nobody died of anything else during that time.
No, and if you had caught COVID in hospital, it wasn't admitted that you caught it in hospital.
Yeah.
You couldn't say that you had COVID, you caught COVID, you're in the hospital for some other reason, then caught COVID. They didn't have that put on the death certificate either.
Well, the other thing, of course, is people died because of having to wait longer for procedures. My friend's neighbour died because their procedure was delayed due to COVID. And you think, well, how many things like that could have been avoided? Would the numbers would those numbers have been much better compared to the true numbers of people that died from COVID? I think probably, yeah.
I think the fear point of view, to instill fear in somebody, and especially when you're poorly and going into hospital, I spent a couple of months in hospital this year, 2 different things, and the fear that I had, because I did think occasions I was going to die, and the thought that there wasn't going to be anybody to see me. I made my will one early hours of one morning. I had to quite dramatically, and the thought that there was nobody going to be there, that could have killed me if I was in COVID times. You know, lockdown times rather. It was absolutely. It must have been horrific, especially for the elderly and children. Imagine children not having their parents.
Thank you for sharing that, Rachel. That was really deep. Thank you for sharing that. But also, free people's opinions on this panel tonight. So if we went into sudden lockdown tomorrow, if the government came out and gave out rules for sudden lockdown tomorrow, do you think you would follow them?
No, not a chance.
Would you, Leah?
To a certain degree, I would, yes. Just because, I don't know. Yeah, I think I would to a certain degree. I mean, I worked all the way through COVID anyway, so other than seeing my family and friends, life was just the same for me. I don't know. I think I would to a certain
though, isn't it? Because as you say, some of us worked throughout COVID, and the horrific stories that are showed on Partygate as well, like nurses moving out of the family home and moving into a hotel for 6-7 months because they were so scared of passing it on to their children, that then you see a Boris party. It's almost, to me, it almost feels like they were laughing at us. Do you know what I mean? That's what I feel. Boris was coming out, and literally as he turned the corner to walk back in, 20 or 30 people, he had a birthday and he had a party and he had a cake, but none of us could celebrate birthdays. None of us could celebrate a celebration of life. None of us could go to a wedding. None of us could go to a wake. But very different rules for number 10. But we could talk about it all night. But we have to.
The thing is, I just want to say one thing.
Go on, mate.
It did make me angry, that part, because my friend Karen, she was going through chemotherapy and her husband was a paramedic, and so she made the choice to come and live with me and my mum in lockdown, and she was here for near 4 months, and her husband used to come off work and he missed her, and he used to sit with a mask and a chair the other side of the gate, and that's 4 months they're not going to get back, and this is criminal. This is a criminal act.
Yeah.
They should now be brought to task.
Yeah, I agree completely.
And although if there wasn't a lockdown, I would adhere to certain rules because you've got no choice. But I'd be more relaxed, and I'd do it with a bit more common sense rather than being told what to do.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I would adhere to rules, because I think the more people that didn't, it would force the hand.
I've got it all fired up on topic 1.
You've got more power, haven't you, as a collective? So
yes, exactly. But we always do, and it's important to do a poll on this one, I thought. So would you listen to the rules if we went into another lockdown? 10% of you said yes, 90% of you said no. You wouldn't listen to the rules. David Blacklock commented, not with government having parties in lockdown, no one will stick to rules again. 1 rule for government and 1 rule for us, so a big no. Andrea Lavender put difficult one. I wouldn't want to be another Partygate. Lisa, if I thought I had it, I would test, as I would still have been doing. If I was to show positive, I would isolate myself. But apart from that, now, no. I wouldn't be having mass gatherings, but I would not wear a mask unless I was visiting a hospital for any reason. So very mixed mixed opinions on that this evening. But we go on to topic 2, guys, which isn't a lot better at all. We
Good.
talk about our Prime Minister this
Oh,
week.
God.
The man that
Not
we
him.
all look up to at the moment, that's leading our country, that has stated shouldn't be believing people can be any sex they want, says our Prime Minister. We shouldn't get bullied into believing that people can be any sex they want to be. They can't. A man is a man and a woman is a woman, says our Prime Minister, as he sparked social media debate in the recent comments on his transgender people during his closing speech at the 2023 Conservative Party conference on October the 4th. He shares his stance on gender debate and said, a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and nothing will change that. So, panel, do you think anybody has the right to judge anybody's identity? And do you think there should be consequences for hate crime on a public platform?
Oh, who wants to touch this with a 10-foot barge pole?
Off you go, people. I'm going to sit back now. I've done the research. Now you talk.
It's absolutely ludicrous. Of course, people can be who they want to be. It's like, what is the big issue? Why can't they just let people be people? If somebody wants to identify as a woman and was biologically born a man, so bloody what? It's fine. It's not causing any harm, is it, to anybody? So just get back in your box and get on with your job of running the country.
But what he says fundamentally is right, in as much as you're born a male, you're identified when the baby comes out as a male or a female, or hermaphrodite, where you've got genitals of both. But then when the child gets older, if he's got more XX or XY chromosomes than the other, and identifies as a female or a male, they should be allowed to pursue that. What person would go through life, as traumatic as it is, to try and find your real identity for the sake of it? It's obviously the way they are. It's obviously them being born as a different gender identity than they were born with. I don't understand a lot of the I didn't realise I was a cisgender. I didn't know. Thing is, you don't go into these things if it doesn't apply to you, or if you don't, I'd accept anybody if some transgender women, as such, and men, I suppose. I'm not really in that. There was Georgina on here, wasn't there? She was a transgender woman. I respected her for what she was, who she was, and how she wouldn't have gone through life like that deliberately, just trying to piss somebody off to say that she wanted to be something that she wasn't. She clearly was who she was. And, to put yourself into a position where you go into a washroom as a female, and I think I'd be more frightened if I was transgender into a female and had to be gone into a male washroom. I'd find that horrific. So what do? There's so many different aspects. This takes you down a rabbit warren of different problems, and so nobody would go through that if they weren't what they wanted to be.
Rachel, that's not his argument. So his argument is
exactly. He does say they are male or female. I know what his argument is, but is blown. People don't do this just willy-nilly, do they? Wrong choice of words, really. They don't.
But what he's stating is, you are completely right. We are born male or female. And I am in the LGBT community, and I do state that I don't think it's fair, and I'm quite happy to say this, I don't think it's fair for a couple to decide a baby is non-binary, because it's how you feel inside. You can't force non-binary on a child. So that child has got to develop to whatever they want to be. What he is saying is that gender is not a choice. And it's not about choice. It's not about, you don't wake up one day and think, right, I want to be a girl. It's a very, 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 from what I know of it, a very long journey, a very long process. We've got a couple of people on, we've got Josie, haven't we? Josie is transgender, gone from boy to female. And actually, what gets me is he's on a public platform and he's... Pardon?
Josie's non-binary.
Non-binary, yes, sorry, non-binary. And Kaylee is also on the panel, and they are non-binary. They're a non-binary person. But what absolutely gets me is that he is our Prime Minister, and he is stood there, and he's supposed to get our vote and get... I just think he is stood there just preaching hate crime. That's all he's doing. He stood on a public platform preaching hate crime. Actually, do you think that should be stopped? Because he's never, well, to our knowledge, he's never experienced that. He's never walked down that road of wanting to be a different gender because they don't feel in the right gender. How dare he stand there and say, you cannot do this? And now MPs are sticking up for him. We've got MPs talking in the news this week. Oh, yes, he's done the right thing. He's said the right thing. I just think, are we going back to the years where you can remember, like years ago, you wasn't allowed to be gay, and you had to keep it silent. It was illegal. Are we going back down that road again?
No.
Yeah, the Prime Minister talking like that, it makes people think that they're okay to be anti-trans and anti, you know, it's when I was younger, all there was Quentin Crisp, and he was made out to be a real weird person. But you know, the more I hear about, I think it's a lot of times it's because a lot of people are not clear on what is what, and they don't like to talk about it, because then I get confused of who is what and what. And when Josie came on and she's they were trying, that's another thing, you see, how do you talk to somebody? You don't want to offend somebody who is this, they, them, their, and with the wrong pronouns, and I think it's, but I don't want to be confused. I don't want to be, because I'm not interested. I just let people live how they want to live, let them be. But you're not going to make me feel awkward because I don't know enough about it. Do you see what I mean?
Do you know how I've got through it though, Rachel? When it's because they and that, I know what you're saying, because even in the LGBT community myself, I sometimes slip up on they and them and she and he and all of that. But how I've got through it is just identify somebody by their name. So I tend in my own head to get rid of he, she, they, them, all of that, and just identify somebody by their name. Because when we go through life and we meet people, we don't know what gender they identify by. So one of the big questions, and Kaylee said this in their interview, is asking that question. So when you meet somebody and you start talking, can I just ask how you identify, please, what you identify as? And it's asking those little questions that help people, or just say their name. Like if I was talking about Leah, for example, I wouldn't go, oh, and she down the road and she's worked here and she's done that. I wouldn't. I would just go, Leah's done this. Leah's done that. Leah's talked about this. And I would just identify them as their name. silence.
Yeah, but then you can get, so how would you like to identify yourself? And you get a punch on the nose. What the hell do you think I am?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think we've moved on a bit from that now.
Well, there's
Oh,
always
yeah.
there's always going to be people who are like that, you know.
Insensitive. Yes.
There, what do you think? Do you think actually what he's doing at the moment? Let's go to Leah, because you're very quiet, Leah. Do you think this is hate crime?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really quiet because the dogs are running around and they're doing me head in and really inappropriately. Surprised you can't hear them. Yeah, but I do think it's a hate crime, and I do think that there should be some consequences for it, because there would be if it was anybody else. Yeah, there needs to be an example set.
And the other thing that leads me on from this topic is, I don't know about you guys, I'm going to confess something here, but I hate the line freedom of speech. I can't stand it, because the only time I hear people say, well, it's freedom of speech, is when they're losing an argument and they can't get their own bloody way. That's when the sentence comes.
It does seem to be used as an excuse to be awful a lot of the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, and to bully.
So.
It's a new way. It's like I don't have the friend anymore, but years ago I had a friend, and every time we talked about something, well, it's freedom of speech, and I used to think, you're just shutting me down by saying that sentence, because you're not winning the argument. Do you still, confession time panel, do you still use that line? Have you ever used, well, it's freedom of speech? Or actually, do you think that line needs to disappear?
Well, I believe in freedom of speech, but I don't think I tend to use that in an argument or a discussion. I don't tend to go, well, this is freedom of speech. I don't think I ever really need to use that, to be honest. But then I believe in common sense and being gentle with people, and in return them hopefully being gentle with me. And what I mean by that, in this sort of, in relation to this discussion, argument, whatever it is, that people just need to use their common sense and, like I said, be gentle with each other. People who are ignorant about things, me included, I'm still learning.
Yeah, well done, Chris. Thank you. Thank you.
You know what I mean?
It's a great line to say.
And I think people, as long as I don't mean any malice by getting things wrong by accident, or that I'm trying or whatever, then, you know, I appreciate people being gentle with me if I accidentally get something wrong, or I say something that isn't right without realizing it, you know. And the same the other way around, you know. At the end of the day, it's been said by everyone else here, if a person is just, if a person is morally a decent person, does it really matter what they are, who they are? I don't think so. What is the point of the Prime Minister saying that if not to cause a stir?
Just endorsed everybody's opinion that it's wrong.
Do you think slightly as well? Do you think slightly it's pushing people back into closets?
Probably.
It's not helping our nation be out and who they want. Say again, Leah.
Potentially it could, yes. Because he's such a character, and he's got so much power. Potentially it could have an adverse effect and make people think that they can't be who they are and push them into the closet or wherever. Yeah.
But it's power as well, isn't it? Because the thing is, if any of us went into our workplaces tomorrow and said to somebody came forward and said, actually, I don't think I'm the right gender, I'm transitioning, and somebody said to them in front of them, actually, you're born a male or you're born a female, you can't change it, we would be disciplined. We would be taken in for it could be a disciplinary, it leads to anything. Why are we doing this for hierarchy? It seems like hierarchy can do anything now.
Yeah, same thing as Partygate, isn't it?
Yeah, Chris has already said it. One rule for one and one rule for another.
Exactly. And my last question is, do you feel more should be done for any kind of phobia? And do you feel that we have done enough, or we've still got a hell of a long way to go?
I have a big opinion on this, actually. And I think both sides of the opinion on this issue need to have a bit more common sense. And I think what I mean by that is that, obviously, if you're a big voice on Twitter, why, and you've got an opinion, it's your own, and it doesn't sort of fit that with people's ideals of being what gender they want to be, why not just shut up and not say anything? Keep that opinion to yourself. It's not going to help anyone, and they're not going to hurt you by being themselves. So that's that part of the common sense. I think the other side of it, there's a very small minority. I've got to be careful what I say because I don't want to come across it incorrectly, but there's a small minority of mainly organizations really that get things wrong by trying to appease too much. And what I mean by that is they will set silly guidelines. I know there's a lot of controversy about sport and who can take part in men's or women's sport, and that leads to discussions about things being unfair because of the biology of someone's physicality, and what they're capable of doing, that sort of thing. And also, funnily enough, being in hospital recently, I was asked by somebody, and he put his head in his hands like this. He said, "I'm not allowed not to ask you this. Are you pregnant, or do you believe you could be pregnant?" And I said, "Well, that's just silly." I said, I understand why that question's on there, but, really, for me, that I'm not. It's physically impossible. So things like that just comes down to a matter of common sense. And those things, I think, wind up the bigots and the people who have got no tolerance. I just think, kind of, let's try and get rid of that silliness around it on both sides, and everyone will rub along a lot better.
Also, if you say freedom of speech, we were talking about earlier, it's similar to opinion, but I would only give my opinion if somebody asked for it. Doesn't mean to say you've got the right to actually say it because it's freedom of speech. It's a crazy world we're living in, and I don't think it's going to get any better actually.
No,
not anytime soon.
No. And I truly believe this. But let's move on, because I knew we were going to be like this. That's the second topic, and we're halfway through the show. But the third topic is: has anybody seen The Beckhams on Netflix? It's been a really, really comforting documentary. If you've not seen it, please watch it. It's really comforting, and it just shows that he's human. That's what I got by it. He opens his doors to everything, his family, his wife, but he also opens the door to that football match. For the life of me, I can't remember what year it was, so someone out there might be able to tell me. A football match where it changed his life for months. So what he did was he was tackled, and he tackled back. And he was red carded on, it was either Manchester United or England, one of the games. And he was slated for months on end. And I'm talking bad slating. He would walk down the street, he got spat on. There was pubs outside with memorabilia of him hung by his neck. He was just absolutely... But what was really inspiring about his whole story is that he kept going to training. He kept going to matches. He kept facing the public every single day. And when he was questioned about that, on how did you get through that, David? What helped you get through that? And he stated what got him through it was tough parenting by his dad. His dad constantly was on him every single day. His mom, his cousins, everybody would say, "You're a fantastic footballer, David." But his dad would be in the background going, "Well, you were good, but you need to improve on this." And when his dad was interviewed and asked, "Why was you so hard on him?" his dad came back to say, "Well, actually, you can't tell somebody they're 100% perfect all the time. They need to work on something." So that got me thinking about parenting, ladies and gents, because do you believe you've got to be tough on our children sometimes? And have you ever reflected being tough on your children? Let's go to you first, Christopher.
With all those kids that I've got. Yes, I think there are moments you need to be tough, but you, as a parent, you have to be incredibly careful because, as we know, one small thing in our minds can really change how a child thinks and feels for the rest of their life. So it's a very difficult thing to do, parenting, of course. And I think the hardest thing is that psychological side where you want to get that balance right between being a loving, protective parent, but also being tough when it is necessary.
And have you ever reflected, Chris, or have you like sometimes the only thing I can take it from is Freddie, my nephew, and I am the uncle that tells him off a little bit more than my mum does or my sister does, and I do push him a little, but he does listen to me. But even as an uncle, I've walked away sometimes and gone, was I a bit too tough there? Was I a bit, actually, should I have been a bit more lenient? Have you ever had that sort of parent guilt?
Oh yeah, I think that's very, very common with most parents, I would say. Judging by the conversations I've had with other mums and dads, definitely, I think that's a really common thing where your head is telling you, I have to make this point and there's only one way to make it, but then your heart is saying, look at my child who's upset, or maybe they didn't quite understand it, I didn't explain it right. It's incredibly difficult, yeah. And I think sometimes in the past I have got it wrong, and that's the worst, when you kind of reflect on that and go, I was too tough, and that's that, I got it wrong.
Do you reflect that with, sorry panel, I will come to you in a minute, Chris, you've got me talking now, but do you reflect that with your child? So if you think you've been too tough, would you necessarily sit down with your child and go, do you know, Daddy was wrong there? I was wrong there. Do you think that's really important to reflect with your children as well?
I think it is, actually. Yeah, we were talking about this, funnily enough, recently, and I've got a lot better at admitting that I hate being wrong. I'm rubbish at being wrong. But I think certainly where my children are concerned, I've got a lot better at it, just because of how important I think it is. And it's lovely that it's particularly small children think that their parents are right about everything. They think everything. They just, but actually that can also be a little bit damaging, because if they think that adults are right all the time, then they may not always make the right decisions based on influence from adults as well. So I think it is important to instill that thing that everybody gets it wrong sometimes.
Rachel, did you have easy children, or did you have to be that tough parent?
I was never tough. I was always reasonable. I was never wrong though. But I never had one of them saying, "Well, don't bother asking her. She ain't got a clue," or anything like that. I would admit if I was wrong, in a way that I would say, "Well, actually, I never was wrong." Because if I chastised my children for anything, it was something that was basically fundamentally wrong anyway. I didn't used to get on my high horse and used to get cross and mad. But my children weren't the easiest of children, school age. I would always try to be firm, and I'm better now, better actually at it as being a grandparent, because you haven't got all the problems that go with, you can't spend as much time with your own children as a grandparent can. They've got all the basic stuff to get, you know, food, shopping, and keeping the house going, and live with them 24/7. But with Alfie now, my grandson is 3 in November, and he's got to the why stage. Why? And it's so much easier to say, well, why, Alfie, and explain it to him, because then if you're explaining it for a longer time, he doesn't come out with the whys. And he's getting quite good at it now. He says why, and he says, okay, Nana. And he's
I
always
love
saying,
that. I
what's
love
happening? What's happening, Nana? And then you have to explain this to him. And his vocabulary is coming on wonderfully, and he doesn't say why quite as much. So I think if you've got a bit of patience, a bit of time, and you know, basically what's right and wrong.
Well, do you know
But
what? It's all a lesson in it, because 20 years time, panel, your children could be replacing you and sat right here.
And they'll be telling you all of the things that we did wrong.
Yeah, sat right here. Leah,
cats anyway, Nick, your cats. You know, when you had your kittens, you
Oh,
talked to them like they're 2 children. No, you're naughty. No, don't do that, or you're going in the kitchen, as if they'd understand. It was hilarious.
Oh, Rachel, you know how to do it every single time, don't you? You just, off we go. Leah, let's slightly come to you a little bit. Share as much as you want to share. But have you felt that as a step parent?
Yeah, yes and no. So it's weird being a step parent, because at first I was when it came down to like discipline and stuff like that, I felt a bit on the fence, because I felt like I couldn't discipline them when they needed it, because I was a stepmom and I wasn't their mum and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's important to instill respect and values into children when they're growing up, and if that is telling them off if they're doing something wrong, then so be it. I think it does mold us into the adults that we're going to be when we're adults. Just like my childhood, you know, I thought my mum was really strict, and you know, at the time I used to be like, you know, crying and I hate you, you're so horrible.
I've said that to my mum so many times.
But today, I thank my mum for doing all of that, because it's made me and my brother into the people that we are. And I'd like to say that we're nice people, we're respectful, we've got good values, we've got good morals. And I think it's important that you give children the tools to be good people.
Definitely.
So,
Definitely.
Yeah. And the second match was in 1998 against Argentina.
Oh, yeah. Well done, Leah Greenwood. Well done there, look. Do you think, though, and this is a really, really difficult one for me, so I'm going to ask all of you first. Do you think we are born with resilience, or do you feel it's something we learn with age?
Cool, that's different. A bit of both, probably.
It's like the nature-nurture debate, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. If I sort of use my 2 young boys as an example on that one, Charlie's only 3, and his natural personality is far more of a resilient personality than Sam, who is 7. So in that sense, I think just naturally he must have that within him. However, I think that your duty as a parent is to encourage all of the necessary factors, that, you know, resilience, respect, whatever it is. Yeah,
Chris, I slightly disagree, because honestly, if you saw me in my 20s, I had no resilience at all. at all. And I'm sure people on the panel here, without going into too much detail, will say, well, there's still a little bit of that no resilience there, Nick. It hasn't completely gone. But I had no resilience at all. I would fall every single time. I would have days of being upset. I really cared what people thought about me. I had no resilience till, and I've said it many, many times, that I had an epiphany at 30, and I really did. 30 was like the turnaround of my life. But if someone said to me, how did you get that? Where did it come from? How did you learn it? I don't know. So we talk about, we need to teach our children this, and we need to teach how to do it. How? Where do we start with that? How do we teach a child to be resilient? Because I feel you've either got it, and I do think you learn it. I don't think it comes from age.
I think you learn it through experiences. So I think you learn it through different experiences, like school, friends, falling out with friends, having arguments with teachers, and with mums and dads. And then the older you get, you either become more resilient, or if you have situations that you experience where it knocks your resilience down a little bit because of situations that have happened. So I think it's experiences and situations, traumas and stuff like that, that can fluctuate our resilience, and it can either make you very resilient or not so resilient.
So I'm not sure you do disagree with me entirely there, Nick, then, to be honest. Why do you say you disagree with me?
Because we were talking about the nature nurture, and it's hard, because when I for years and years and years, 10, 15 years of my life, I blamed a lot of my parents, a hell of a lot of my parents. Like, they didn't give me the right upbringing, and they didn't do this, and this is why I'm like that, and this, that, and the other. But actually, when I think back to it, that's how they were taught. And before that, that's how they were taught. And before that, and it goes back and back and back. So actually, when I think about, and I love my grandma to pieces, God rest your soul if you're listening. But I do think now, when I think back, actually, should my grandma have gone to counselling? Should she have done something about it? Because it feels like it stopped with me, like the change of it, and I've decided to not follow my family tradition and hide my head in the sand and go, no, I'm not dealing with this. I'm popping out and going, no, something needs to change. And it has ruffled feathers, because obviously it's not what we usually do as a family. It's not how we deal with things as a family.
Is that a generational thing, though?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, completely.
Like, in your grandma's generation, you didn't talk about things.
No.
In your generation, you maybe spoke about things, but in your generation, it's okay to be you, and it's okay to have. I'm not saying you've got.
That's what I mean. I sometimes think it depends on, and I'm not saying my environment was horrific. It really wasn't. There was stuff I would wish I could change, but it wasn't horrific. But actually, we don't always get that nurture part, because actually some of us don't know how to do that nurture part, because we think we're doing it the right way, but we've still got thousands of people going into counselling every week.
Oh, and actually I 100% agree with that. Yeah, but what I sort of meant really was that I think it's a bit of 50-50. You know, some children are luckier than others that they just seem to have it instilled at an early age naturally, and then are, you know, whatever, are nurtured by their parents a bit more. Whereas I think, like I'm saying, with Sam, who's a bit more sensitive, he probably needs a little bit more of that from us as parents. So yes, I think it's a bit of a balance, really. But certainly, I agree with you about the parenting issue.
What if Sam is? Sorry, Sam. This in like 10 years' time. What if Sam never changes, though? What if he's always like that? Would you see that as a failure as a parent? that you haven't done more, or do you think that's just
Good
down to
question.
Sam and his personality?
That is a good question. I think to a degree, Sam will always be sensitive, and I wouldn't discourage that because that forms a part of what makes some of his life really, really lovely. You know, he actually, his sensitivity brings out a lot of good in the way he acts towards people. But at the same time, it can be a hindrance to something that, say, his siblings might just see as water off a duck's back. He'd take it really to heart, you know. So it's very much swings and roundabouts with that. So no, I think that natural character, that child should not be suppressed, but at the same time, it's just finding the right coping mechanisms for that specific child.
Definitely. Very quiet through that, ladies. Very quiet through that. But we did a poll, as always. We did a poll. Would let me, it's the last poll. Do you believe in tough parenting? 80% of you said no, and 20% of you said yes. We had a few comments from it.
I think you'd have to define it more.
Margaret Hubbard put, to a certain extent, tough but loving. I'm trying to think of. Rachel Penny said, tough parenting can be cold and challenging for a child with unachievable goals. You don't have to be tough, you just have to listen, instill confidence and morals. I've read that completely right this week, Rachel. Are you impressed?
Yeah.
Are you impressed? Moving on. I don't know if you've seen the new TV series. It's been on. Oh, there's been so much in news this week. It's been hard to not fill a show this week. Exclusive Married at First Sight UK. Shona breaks her silence on the uncomfortable and difficult scenes with Brad as Women Aid praised the show for intervening after his Wally unacceptable and unexpected behaviour. Married at First Sight star Shona has broken her silence after her husband Brad was accused of controlling and manipulative behaviour. Said that wrong, didn't I? Women Aid has praised the decision after he shocked viewers with the actions such as telling Shona to shut up and claiming he allows her to feel emotions. It did get me thinking about relationships and friends, though, Panel. Do you feel in a relationship dangerous behaviour comes from childhood and how we was brought up from and moving on to relationships in our lives? So do you think how we treat other people and how we see the aspect of love is very much dependent on our childhood?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it can be. I think, like Leah was saying on the previous question, experience is mould your character, it can do. And I think if you experience it as a short, early life, the males in your family treating the females in the family in a certain way, it can come through. Not all the time, but you can learn bad traits like that. Yes.
Do you think? Who was Chris? Was you about to talk then?
I wasn't actually, but I've got things to
thought
say.
you were about to say. Do you think? Come on, Leah. Sorry, it was you.
So yeah, I agree. Depending on what people have experienced, they either choose to follow their father, mother, in how their relationships are, or whether they look at them and think, well, actually, I don't want to be like that, so I'll move in a different direction. So I do think that we do learn from our families. Yeah.
Do you think when it comes to love, though, any kind of love, do you think there really are scars that we carry for life?
Yeah.
And do you think they really mold us and change it. And I'm talking about any kind of love. So you could have a horrific memory from a childhood, or an horrific memory from a breakdown of a marriage, or an horrific memory for a breakdown of a relationship. Do you think that scars us and stays with us, even though we don't want it to, but self-consciously stays with us forever?
Oh, I think, yeah, you can't avoid certain things sticking with you. I mean, look at people who've got trust issues. That usually stems from previous trauma, with, you know, having had trust broken. But also, what was an interesting word that was thrown out there. Sorry, I can't remember who said it now. But it was the word choose. You choose to be either like your parents, or you make a choice to. I don't think everybody chooses. I think it can be a subconscious thing, can't it? Like I think you said that, didn't you, Nick? That
Yeah.
behaviour is so often normalised in your everyday family home that it might take you years to go, oh, that isn't actually normal. And
Yeah.
in a way, that's a scar that you never realised you had.
Or it takes somebody else for you to see it, because you just thought.
Very
and
much
actually, so. I feel if you come from an unstable childhood, and this isn't personal, I've worked with thousands of people since I was like 16 years old. If you come from an unstable childhood, I feel like there is part of you that, without any condition, which always fears of losing somebody. So even when you've got this perfect relationship, or you start seeing somebody and you get into the settle stage, there's so many people out there that just want to be happy and want to feel secure and want to move on with their lives, but there's a niggle part in the back of the brain that makes them think, hold on, this person could walk away, hold on, this could all end tomorrow, and I think we get that from broken relationships, and from putting our trust in people that we thought that we could put our trust in, but actually when it came down to it, we really couldn't. And I think that scars us forever.
I don't think it's just in romantic relationships either. I think it's how you are as in a family. My mum and dad were a very loving couple. My dad was a manic depressive though. And my mum shielded us from anything like that. We just thought it was normal. My dad used to go off to bed every day, just work and went to bed. And we never thought anything different of it because my mum was so excellent at being a mother. But the whole family thing, that my mum kept us all together, full of love and understanding, that gave me the experience of family and what love is, and respect, and you know, loyalty, and that's the kind of love that I've been brought up with, and that can scar you. Or if you've got a wonderful, you know, family around you, it can enhance the way you live your life. Yeah,
completely. Experts say that we have an emotional and a rational mind, and that the emotional can make us do things we would not normally do. Do you believe in this, and do you think you've ever experienced it?
Oh God, all the time. That's all I want to say on that. Bye.
Yeah, do you believe we've got an emotional and a rational mind, and sometimes the emotional takes over?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that too. I'm always emotional.
Are you, Leah?
Yeah, I cry all the time. Yeah. I don't really know, to be fair.
It's finding the balance, isn't it? Because they say emotional, rational, and then there's in the middle. And it's sometimes trying to find that middle. And when the perfect way to describe it for me is when a relationship ends, you spend ages grieving it, and you're sad about it, and you miss them, and you think, how am I going to carry on, and this, that, and the other. But as they say, don't they, time's a healer. They always say that, time's a healer. And I feel that for that experience, or any kind of big emotion that we've gone through, death or anything like that, we spend a long period self-consciously in emotional mind. And our emotional mind completely takes over all our decisions that we make, what we talk about, how we fix things, how we move forward. And slowly, in time, we move back into rational. We move back into, oh, right, okay, actually, I made this choice a couple of weeks ago, but actually I'm going to change it now because actually I'm thinking that little bit differently. Do you feel like we all do that? We all flip from side to side throughout our lives?
Called hormones.
I think the older you get, you think to yourself, yeah, I'm more irrational, I think, now, because I think to myself, I've not got long left. I'm going to sod that, I'm going to do that, whether that's my irrational mind. But yeah, I think you can go flip from one to the, but I'm quite sane, really. I'm quite a sane, balanced, yeah, you're nodding, Nick. You're going to say you slightly disagree, aren't you? But I feel that I'm quite an all-rounder until I met you. But,
righteous Rachel.
It's fine, Rachel, because we all know what Nick's like, really.
Isn't it? You can tell.
You all love it. You all love a bit of Nick in your life. I've completely changed your life. So you don't need to admit it. The last question is, do you think marriage changes everything? If you saw a friend you was close to and felt the relationship was not right, you had seen stuff that really wasn't right, would you step in?
I think I would. Yeah, I think I would, yeah.
I wouldn't.
You would?
I wouldn't unless they asked me. If they asked my opinion about it, because if I thought they were about to murder them, yes. But if they were just the wrong kind of person, and you looked at them and thought your friend really loves this person, you know it's not right for them. But if they ask my opinion, I'll give it to them, and I'll give them it fair and square. But unless, I'd always be there for them, because
Rachel, this is very, very, very rare, but I slightly agree with you.
I actually do slightly agree with you, Rachel. But
yeah, because
there's
that saying in there: don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. And actually, see, I went through a horrific relationship in 2012, and I've talked about it before. And when I came out of it the other side, I talked everything to my best friend. I spilled every last detail. And he then said to me afterwards, well, actually, Nate, when I really think about it, I didn't like him. And when I really think about it, I had suspicions. I never knew it was as bad as it was, but I had suspicions. And I said to him, I was sort of begging in my head, speak to me, say something, because I will say something, but I need you to leave this conversation. And I was almost expecting, very young Nick, was expecting him to save me. But in the same respect, he said, if I had said anything, Nick, and you were you were naturally at that point very in love with this person, and actually I was scared you were going to turn my back on me. If I had said something to you and gone, this is not right, you need to get gone, I'm packing the car up, we're going, you might have resented me for the rest of my life. And there is a point to that, isn't there? When it comes to relationships, actually, are you that friend that steps forward and I'm going to say out, or are you a bit more reserved and I'll sit back and I'll wait for that friend to come to me? Leah, let's go to you first. Would you dive straight in?
It would depend on, if it was just the fact that I didn't like that person, then no, because I don't have to live with them. So it's their choice to be in a relationship with that person. Just because I didn't like them doesn't mean that I needed to inform them of that. If it was something like significant, like somebody had done something like cheated or something like that, then I would absolutely, even though it's got nothing to do with me, because I'd want to know. So I would, and I have done in the past, told my friends that this is what I've seen. You know, I'll be here for you, but I just wanted to let you know because I'd want to know if I was in that situation.
And I think it's you're leaving the decision. I think that's a really lovely way of doing it, actually, because you're leaving that decision to your friend. So what you're saying to your friend is, whatever you decide now, I'm behind you. I just wanted you to know the truth. And if you decide to go one way, I'll go that way with you. Or if you decide to go another way, I'll go that way with you. But I can't sit here and not say anything. Would you dive in, Rachel?
Pardon?
Would you dive in?
If I was with full facts, if I saw somebody doing something it was hurting somebody I loved or somebody I knew, then I'd be very careful with my words, but you'd have to be in that situation really to gauge it, see how it was. But I wouldn't want them to be that people have to make their own decisions at the end of the day, don't they? They have to make their own paths, and I think if you intervene when it's nothing to do with you, but like you say, you just have to say, well, this is what I've done, this is what I've seen, but either way, it's nothing to do with me really. I just want you to be full facts in front of you. I'll be here whatever you decide, but not everybody, you can't live somebody else's life for them.
No, you can't. But saying that, Chris, seeing that you're so touchy-feely with a band member on Facebook this week, I have directly messaged your wife and said, I just need to share this photo.
Oh, she knows. She knows all about me and John.
Need to share this photo. I'm just being honest. That's all. That brings us, do you know what, ladies and gents, we don't have time to share the last comment, the last topic. I will put it on next week's show. Will you thank my panel for this evening? What a show it has been this week. We've had so much to talk about. Hopefully there's lots of news in the news next week for lots of us to share. But thank you for joining us for this extra 20-minute show that you've watched us this evening. Will you thank my panel this evening? Joining me, Nicholas James, was Leah Greenwood, Rachel Penny, and Chris. I think it's been the most talkative show you've been on.
I know, it's exciting, wasn't
really
it?
spoke up this week.
Oh, my heart's pounding.
It's coming out of your shell. Join us next week, same time, same place. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye-bye.